Alrighty, folks, we got to have an adult conversation. We do this from time to time. We are going to create a message for the employees. I believe what's happening right now is more and more employees are having hallway conversations, water cooler talks about layoffs and rifts and who's going to get it, who's not, and all of that. I was that employee 25 years ago. Then I was the executive who had to make the hard choices. And we have the one and only CEO of Hemlane, Dana, to have this discussion. How you doing, Dana?
I'm great. Thanks for having me again.
I don't know if this is happening in your world, but I'm assuming this is happening across the country. People are seeing layoff notices. They are getting nervous. They are obviously probably concerned for themselves. What would be your message to said employees, either at Hemlane or maybe more generic across the board? As we all, I mean, it's no question. I think we're heading into a recession. How deep, how long, all of
Yeah.
that can be debated. But we're heading into the bad times. The good times are over. We're going to have a little bit of the bad times, but it won't last forever. But
Yeah.
what's the message?
So there's two different messages that I would actually three, I should say. I'm going to start with the third one and then go to the two most important.
Sure.
There's three messages that I would give. The first one is that you need to be in the right job at the right company. There are certain in a bull run, there's certain like, hey, we'll just have a ton of people in this company, right?
Figure it out.
And just figure it out. And if you are not a subject matter expert at what you're doing, if you're there but don't really like, it's not even your passion, the industry or something like that, it makes it a lot easier of a decision, right? To say, okay, potentially this person shouldn't be here. So the first thing I would leave you with is like, find your passion, the thing that wakes you up in the morning, because everything else is so much easier. If you're passionate about what you do, you come to work every day, you're excited about it and you're good at it. Because I was once told, this was a McKinsey consultant, people like doing what they're good at. And I think that's true, because if you're
Yeah.
good at it, then you get that um,
Endorphin.
all of that, and yeah, from everyone every day, you're so good at what you're doing, etc. So the first thing I would say is like, obviously find your passion. But there are two other things that I would say that you really need to focus on. And the first thing is the first one is understanding your company itself. How is your company doing? How much, like, these questions are questions you should ask. How much are you burning? How much cash flow do you have for the next week, months, or sorry, for the next year? It's like, is it a 2-year runway? Is it a 1-year runway? And how are we growing? What does our revenue look like? Will we be able to raise that next round? So all of that is like the first most important thing. If you find your company is not in a good position, like month over month revenue is declining, you are on the earnings call of the IPO and the stock's not doing well, that's where then you say, hey, my whole department could be cut. And it has nothing to do with me. It's just the
Mhm.
department. That's where you just start having intro conversations with other companies, just to learn a little bit more, just to say, hey, not really looking for a job right now, but kind of curious to know what you have. And when you're not looking for a job, companies want you. When you are
Yeah.
looking for a job, companies don't want you. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like, you want what you can't have.
Yeah.
And so you should start having those conversations. So that's the first one, is really understanding the like health of the company. Then the second thing is understanding the health of your position, because there are certain things where you might be, let's just say, on a product launch that maybe failed. The company's doing great, but your product's not doing well, or your team's not doing well. That is the other time that a company says, oh, we're going to have to flip the switch on this team and make a hard decision, just because we know we're going into a recession. And so that is where you really want to ask those questions of like, how is our team doing? How am I doing, to your boss? Like, what are the metrics that I am supposed to be benchmarked against? And how am I doing against those? How is our team doing against the metrics that have been set? And so it's both at the company health level as well as the team health level that you have to look at. Because of course, no one wants to let go of people. No one wants to have these layoffs, right? But it comes down to, what is the best for your career? And is this the best place for you? Is your department the best for this company? And analyzing that. And so I would say, part of your time when you get off work, whether it's 5 or 6 p.m., is doing some analysis on that and setting yourself up for those conversations, or to do more research on your company. Like, how many people listen to the earnings call of their company? I bet at these large corporations, it's probably less than like 10,
Oh, dude, it's
15%.
less than 1%. Come on.
Maybe
It's
less than 1%. Yeah, you've got Wall Street on those calls, and no one else. You have these bankers on those calls and no one else. And so that's where it's like, listen to your earnings call, look at the stock, look at just, you can download, if you're at a public company, you can download your financial statements.
Mhm.
What is our revenue this quarter? What was our revenue last quarter? What was our revenue the quarter before? And what was it last year? And you can look at the trends over time, and then you can look at the stock and what's happening and what's going on. And so that will make a lot of those decisions. And I've been in that position. It's a terrible position. But one of my first jobs in finance was sitting there at a company I worked for and redlining people's names, and I didn't know who they
Oh,
were. I
yep.
did not know who they were. It was just my job to go through.
Yep.
And I didn't even have their performance reviews. It was just that department was getting cut, and it was redlining the names and having a huge layoff there. And that's
Yeah.
a position you never want to be in. And so really understanding how your department is performing, et cetera. The other thing I have to say is, the closer you are to revenue, the better. I know you've been into that sales position, Michael, but the closer you are to revenue, the more stability you have on that job, because the revenue is the number that matters. Now, in this time and this day and age, more people worry about gross margin. There's also on the expense side and operations and efficiency, but revenue helps solve a lot of those expense problems. So if
Yeah.
revenue is growing, it helps with anything on the expense side. And so that would be the other thing I'd leave you with. But yeah, listen to your earnings calls,
Yeah.
understand what's going on with your company, understand what's going on with your department. Does the head of your department get along with
Yeah.
with the executive team? If not, that type of thing. So start to ask and answer those questions, and or you won't have the exact answers, but you might have a hypothesis on it, and that will help set you up. And it also eases your anxiety. If you've every time you're worried about your job, if you go and put it in Excel and say, here are the facts, here's what I have, it suddenly reduces that anxiety of, am I going to be let go? It's like, oh, I've reduced the probability because the company's doing well, stock is going up, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that I'll add to that. All of that is wonderfully said. First, when I go back and I think about the first real recession I went through as an individual contributor, you're right. Get close to revenue, be a top producer. Revenue cures a lot of things. But even before I was in sales, I was actually an accountant, and we had a little hiccup. I worked at Quantum, the old disk drive company, and there was a little hiccup in technology for some reason one quarter. We had a small layoff. And what I would tell you when we had those discussions, the managers were saying, who could take on more work? Because what I uncovered in that situation is there were some individuals that were really, really good at one thing,
Mhm.
but the managers needed to find people that were more flexible and could take on more challenges, right? Do a role and a half.
Yeah.
And and again, sometimes people get very, I don't know, almost ego based, like I'm the best at X. Well, if you're only doing X and they need somebody to do Y and X,
Yeah.
you might get cut and be totally shocked
Yeah.
by that. So I would tell people going into this, right, get close to revenue, be a top producer, generally protected. But if you're not in a role that's kind of directly connected to revenue, be somebody who's doing other things, skilling up in other areas. Because when managers make those decisions, the work still has to get done.
Yeah.
And if you're that person that can take on something else, your chances go up. So that's the first thing. Now I'll go back to being an executive in a nasty recession. Um, and we're both in the Silicon Valley, and this is going to piss off a lot of engineers and product managers. Trust me, your next great widget, your next great thing that's all burn, no revenue, can get cut in a heartbeat. I know
Mhm.
you think you're the future of the company. Trust me, an accountant sitting on the sidelines doesn't care. If you're burning millions and millions of dollars on X, it will be an easy, brain dead simple to cut your entire department, project, whatever. And I get notes from engineers all the time. I talk about this. You don't understand, Michael. We're the next great thing. You can't
Yeah.
replace us, blah, blah, blah. Baloney. We're going into recession. You'll all burn. Your project can start later and I'll go find new people. Stop
Yeah.
being so arrogant. Get close to core revenue. Core
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And just the mentality of how you how every single day you present yourself to the company. If you're like, hey, I only do this, I'm off at 3 or 4 because I've gotten that thing done. You do run a risk, especially at these companies that aren't doing well and have to make those decisions. And, I've been there. I remember when I was 23 and my entire team got laid off at a company. They gave me 5 people's jobs to do just because I was the cheapest labor. I was the youngest
Yeah,
person
it
there.
wasn't about you. It's just that you were cheap.
I was cheap and I could do 4 people's jobs because I was going to work investment banking hours for them. I didn't care. I wanted to succeed and prove myself. And I had this mentality of I'll do it at all costs. And so from that perspective, when they make those cuts, they're thinking about your personality. Are you the first one in the office, the last one to leave, taking on more work, et cetera? Because if a manager is told, this happens especially at larger companies, I've seen if a manager, or sorry, it's usually like at the VP level,
Yeah.
hey, you have to cut 25 to 30% of your team.
Yeah, they
It's
get
gonna
told a number. They just get told
Yeah.
a number.
Or they
Yeah.
get told like a salary number they have to
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah.
Like it's
Total.
this.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, great, they could cut like 20 Danas that like make nothing because they're just starting out in their career that wouldn't do anything. Or a lot of that management they could cut and just give someone like, the Danas of the world 10 times the amount of work. And they'll make those decisions 9 times out of 10. That, hey, okay, who is going to take on more, who's going to be a go-getter, et cetera. And so make sure you do have that go-getter mentality as well. If you're one of those people having that Kool-Aid talk of like, oh, the company, I can't believe they want me to work until 6 p.m. and this and
Yeah.
that, like it gets around. It definitely gets around, and it's not going to look good for you. So make sure and that goes back to that first point I had. Make sure you're passionate about it. If you go to
Yeah.
work and you're miserable every day, like that shouldn't be the job that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sign. Yeah. And at the end of the day, life is about being happy. It's something I've come to appreciate the older
Yeah.
I get. And this could be a time, a layoff could actually be a great thing for both parties, right? You can go find your next thing, your next passion, and kind of it can be a good thing. So folks, at the end of the day, we're in it. The bad times never last. Good thing is bad times are much shorter than the good times, but winter is here. Get prepared. Dana, where can people find you and follow what the great folks at Hemlane are doing?
Yeah, you can go to www.hemlane.com and just we have a free trial on there. Mention one rental at a time, of course, and try it out. Whether it's you have a rental vacancy, whether you're just looking to collect rent, or whether you're looking for repair coordination. We do property management for you, provide you both the software and the services.
Folks, if you are a one rental at a time fan in recent view, or just go get the 30-day trial. Nothing. Go practice being a landlord. You hear me say it all the time. This is the time to get prepared. One of that thing is practice. Hemlane gives you a 30-day trial. In my free course, Dana has a PDF with how to do it. And if you're in the paid course, she's actually done a video series of how to walk through the product. Dana, thank you so much. Again, hemlane.com. Tell them you came from one rental at a time or Zuber, and you get 20% off the first year. Thanks, Dana. Take care.
Great. Thanks so much.